Welcome to the Nuvalo webinar series. This is Manon Bettner, Principal and CEO of Nuvalo. Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be showcasing GreenQloud's private and hybrid cloud management software, QStack. Nuvalo is a Seattle-based IT consulting and sourcing firm with practice areas in infrastructure and business applications and also IT business management, or ITBM. Beyond offering traditional IT brokerage services, Nuvalo is unique in that we offer strategic analysis and guidance to help businesses quantify what they have, what they need, model potential scenarios, and build their business case before going to RFP. We also negotiate contracts based on the RFPs that we help our clients generate. In short, we provide complete lifecycle management for any IT initiative. In working with rapid growth in Fortune 1000 organizations to design, procure, and manage global cloud solutions, we've developed an extensive ecosystem of service providers and vendor partners consisting of recognized brands as well as niche players. We became familiar with GreenQloud last year during several client engagements related to cloud management platform sourcing and chose to spotlight them today because we feel their QStack suite is one of the most comprehensive tools we've seen on the market for managing multi-cloud environments from a single pane of glass, and because QStack is actually more than just a cloud management platform. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by GreenQloud's co-founder and COO for the Americas, Aki Hrafshan, as well as Carl Curl, who leads Nuvalo's IT business management practice. We at Nuvalo are big fans of QStack because we're seeing a growing number of enterprises who are looking for ways to modernize their IT organizations and increase their levels of efficiency. And as you'll hear, their infrastructure management suite plays an instrumental role in changing the way you can now manage your systems. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Aki. Please keep an eye open during the presentation for polling questions, and following the demo, Carl will conclude by speaking to how QStack is enabling better business processes from an IT executive's perspective.
Hi, my name is Aki Hrafshan. I'm co-founder and COO of GreenQloud. Talk to you here from Seattle, which is our second office. GreenQloud is a 5-year-old infrastructure software company. We started out in Reykjavik, Iceland, and QStack, which we're talking about today, is our all-in-one product that we built from our experience of deploying and developing complete public compute and storage cloud. And GreenQloud has a proven track record of creating these large-scale infrastructure clouds, both for private and public use. Now, QStack is the world's first all-in-one hybrid infrastructure management platform. And it's the first one as well that has no lock-in on the deployment model that you're choosing. So QStack can be deployed equally as an on-prem private cloud that supports both compute resources and object storage, but it can also be deployed as a full public cloud if you're a service provider or an MSP. That's another model. And tying those two together, we offer a hybrid model as well. And there's no difference between deployment software. So you have no lock-in on which model you're looking for. QStack uses a lot of open source technologies. When we say we bridge the gap between proprietary and open standards and that it's future-proof, what we mean by that is that we have gathered the best-in-class solutions within QStack and auto-manage those solutions. So, for example, we use components from OpenStack, but we also use components from Apache CloudStack. And we've built it in such a way that when the open source community adds new functionality, those can be integrated without disrupting your QStack platform. Now, I'm going to demo QStack today, but it's good to have sort of a background on why QStack is better than what's out there. And I like to go over the reasons why private clouds in general seem to fail in deployment. And these points were not made by GreenQloud. These were gathered through research. A lot of them came through Gartner. But I'm going to go over them one by one. And when I do the demo, you'll see how we have tackled these points and how QStack can actually help a lot in modernizing your IT while still leveraging your existing investments. So one of the first things that is the reasons why private cloud deployments fail is that private clouds are not inherently, or the definition of private cloud just seems to be unclear to many people. And to us, private cloud means that you have to have built-in self-service. And this comes not as a surprise to people, but the VMs revolution has given us a lot of flexibility in IT, but what it hasn't done is it hasn't freed our operations people to do optimizations to actually bring business value from the IT, because they're busy servicing the organization itself. Another issue is that you don't really have visibility into what's happening in your IT. So there's usually, let's say you're running VMware only, you're not deploying automated metering or any analytics. So you can't do show back, you can't do charge back. And the third reason here is that when you're running a proper infrastructure manager and you want it to behave like a cloud, you need to have industry-compatible APIs, because new technology, new workloads, they simply require these tools. So all automation going as deep as using Vagrant or Chef or all these provisioning tools, they want to have an endpoint that's at least up to par with something like Amazon. And I touched on that, hypervisors or VMs, they've given us great flexibility, but hypervisors are not cloud, not by any stretch, because you don't have that automation part. That's key to being a real cloud. And other things that have been identified as reasons for failing to deploy proper private clouds are maybe not that obvious, and I don't even list them here. For example, being too successful, having too much usage of the private cloud actually can lead to more cost. But that isn't actually a problem we see as technical problem. The problem is actually that we're measuring the wrong things, and so that brings us back to not deploying automated metering and analytics. The last thing is that, and this is especially true for, and you'll know this, the ones that are listening that have, deployed OpenStack especially, loosely coupled components in these frameworks, and we like to say that OpenStack is simply a framework because there are so many flavors of it now, and they're incompatible with each other. But loosely coupled components lead to one thing, and that's what we call upgrade hell, where everything breaks when you simply update one part of the big puzzle. And that's why QStack is a monolithic platform. It's got everything built in. There's no need to pull in other components. And to answer some of these statements, I'll just go a little bit over the feature highlights of QStack. So I mentioned before that it's deployable as a private and hybrid cloud. It does bring you a single pane of glass, a self-service portal, and to give you that visibility, we have built-in metering. We built in chargeback. You can do custom reports, and to free up the operations people, you can actually just set quotas. You can set quotas on projects, on users, departments, and because the platform comes automatic with resource isolation, you don't have to worry at all about the security issue between tenants. So it's a fully multi-tenant, fully secured platform out of the box. One of the key differentiators, or one of the few key differentiators for QStack, is that not only are we hypervisor agnostic, meaning that we can run on KVM or Zen or even VMware, but we are also have the best-in-class of bare metal support. So this means that in QStack you can actually mix and match bare metal servers for the workloads that really need all of the power of the servers that you have, but mix them with the networking of the virtual machines. And the portal itself and the APIs, and I'll go a little bit more into that in my demo, is fully customizable, fully brandable, meaning that you can make the platform your own. And the licensing model is very, very simple. It's simply based on per host monthly license. So it's kind of like a SaaS model, except it's totally on-prem solution. Now, I'd like to, before I start the demo, I'd just like to reiterate one of the key features here, and which I just touched on, and that's our VMware support. Now, a lot of you might be running VMware today, and we've had great success in deploying QStack on top of existing VMware environments, and also environments that are diverse. So meaning that you may have some KVM, some bare metal, some VMware. What we are solving there are many of these points. So getting a single pane of glass for all of your IT infrastructure, getting that hybrid functionality, so you can control your local environment in multiple zones, and you can provision and monitor instances that live in public clouds as well. So self-service is a very big thing for the people that are tried out vCloud and or haven't tried out vCloud even, because that really saves time and effort on the operations side. And now with bare metal provisioning, you're not confined to the overhead of the VMs and lack of bare metal performance. Right, so let's just dive in. All right, so let's dive into the demo. I'd like to show you first what we call the admin, what we call the infrastructure admin. Oh, sorry, the organizational admin. This is the single pane of glass web front end for QStack. And what I'm seeing right now is what we call the organizational admin, and this is a role within QStack that allows you to create users, support users, create projects, set quotas, and get insights, instant insights into some of the infrastructure and how it's running. So for example, right here on the dashboard, I see which top 10, I see the top 10 loaded instances. And you'll notice that within QStack, you can always drill down. You can always drill down into any data point here. And here, for example, here's a loaded instance. And you can access all of that information right away. In QStack, we have a very simple organizational structure. It's good to note that we do support single sign-on, so you can bring your own organizational structure through Active Directory or some other backend that we can use via our SAML middleware. We do have partners that can do even more complex single sign-on orchestration if that's what you need. But out of the box, GreenQloud comes with the ability to create departments and projects. And for example, if I look at a department here, I can drill down and see which users are in this department. I can actually view all the instances that are running. These could be VMs or bare metal servers. I can edit and manage projects. I can set quotas for the whole department. And I can also have some settings. So each department can actually have different characteristics. For example, this department allows personal accounts, but I can disable those if I want to keep all of my project's cost residing within projects and not individual accounts. Right. So projects are a cool thing. They encompass multiple users, and by using projects, for example, a gaming company that we work with has been able to identify now what the actual cost of creating a new advanced feature for the game is. Like, what's the TCO for actually developing that new technology? And they've done that by, disallowing personal accounts and piecing up their projects into smaller project accounts, and then allowing QStack to automatically monitor all the usage and bring them a chargeback report on that. So in anywhere in this user interface, I can generate usage reports. So for example, if I wanted to do a user-based usage report, I could simply select all users here, click generate usage report, and then click generate CSV. Once I do that, it's gonna open up Excel for me and show me a report that's based on 10-minute intervals, utility-based chargebacks. Now, this user interface is great for support. You can limit the access rights as well, but essentially, if you're running an MSP, or you're an MSP, or you're a colo that's going up the stack, or you simply have a large organization that includes some support members, you can actually use this as the endpoint for your support. And talking about support, we actually do integrate Jira. So there's built-in support right here in the user interface. And we also support Zendesk. So if you're using that, you can hook the console directly to that. Now, if you're a more advanced user and you actually want to add hosts or remove hosts or create new zones, we have what we call the infrastructure admin. So here, this is more like the traditional, what you would see in the OpenStacks and CloudStacks. Here you're actually seeing what hardware you have, how much is allocated, and you can do reports, you can create new offerings, service offerings, and the like, right? Okay, so that was admin. Let me show you what it looks like from a user's perspective. First, I want to show you just when I log in as a user in a department that doesn't allow personal accounts. So logging in here, let me see. So logging in here, the first thing I see, I don't have any options here but support, but what I see is projects. So I have a couple of projects that I can work on, and I can't do anything else, right? So in contrast, here I'm logging on as a user that actually is allowed to have a personal account, but again, he can also be part of projects. So here I have access to my projects, but actually now I can both use compute and storage directly from this account. And you've seen that there's one added thing here as well on top, and this is part of our hybrid capabilities. So right now I could switch to controlling Amazon Ireland zone. But the first thing I see here, the dashboard, I can see the health and what's going on in real time with the instances that I have running, and I have historical data. This is really, really fast, and these are, thousands and thousands of data points. And the reason why we can do this is because we've built in Elasticsearch into the platform. So we've got a great platform for collecting data points anywhere from the system through Logstash and Elasticsearch that we can then use for chargeback, showback, and later we'll use for even more advanced allocation algorithms. So compute. I'm being shown here what we call compute within QStack, and that's essentially all operations that I can do involving managing servers and networking. So creating an instance being a server, either a physical or a virtual server, is very, very easy. I click Create Instance, and instead of just creating one, I'm going to create a small cluster. So I'll just call this, let's say, Hadoop cluster, and I want each one of these. I want each one of these to be enumerated. So I'm going to create a tag, and throughout the system we support tagging. Tagging is a very powerful feature because not only can you search via tags, but because you can tag VMs, volumes, networks, firewalls, everything, you can actually mark a whole set of workload through tags and then do macro functions on those workloads, either through an API. So for example, using the API to find everything that's connected to a workload, from the data that it creates to the instances that you have spun up to use that data. And then you could snapshot the whole thing. You could try and migrate it. You could shut it down, start it up in another place, and all sorts of macro functions, only based on the tags. So let's create just create 3 instances there. What you see already here is that we can start an instance from a template or an ISO file. If I wanted to just create 3 Ubuntu servers, for example, clicking Ubuntu here, selecting Ubuntu, I wouldn't have to do anything else. I just click Create Instance, and I'll get 3 VMs. I can boot off an ISO, but the real interesting part here is the ability to spin up VMs or bare metal servers. And literally, the only difference between starting a VM in QStack and a full bare metal server is this flag here. So flipping this flag or this switch here now allows me to create a 24 CPU, 120 gig RAM server. And the templates only depend on, what's been set up in the beginning. But we do support templating bare metal servers, which is an industry first. So you can create multiple bare metal roles, so you can re-provision a bare metal server with a completely different role than it may have originally been used for. And this is really cool for example, creating ad hoc HDFS clusters. So in Barcelona a couple of weeks ago, we demoed starting a 100 node Hadoop HDFS cluster using QStack in 3 minutes. And that's using our booting technology and our bare metal support in QStack. So anyway, I'm going to create just an Ubuntu. Let's create 3 nodes for Ubuntu. I'm just going to have the smallest one. I can select additional disks. So if I wanted to add a data disk to this data volume, it's easy, just clicking that. But this part here, user data, that's one of the more interesting ones. So user data allows you to actually inject a script or any sort of metadata into the instance on boot time. So this we use, and you can actually create and keep a catalog of useful user data scripts. So for example, if you wanted to integrate Chef here or Puppet, or you just wanted to bootstrap a whole cluster based on a script that you have, you can put that in here right now. And then we have some networking options. GreenQloud has implemented the same networking features as Amazon has. So you have something that's called a reserved IP and a dynamic IP. These are public IP addresses. But we have always made sure that each account in GreenQloud and each project is working on its own VLAN. And what this means is that you have a completely private network in the multi-tenant environment. And this also means that because you have a completely private network, you can have different subnets, you can have different VLANs, you can even multicast within the same account. But that's more advanced topic. So I'll just choose reserve new IP address. So that's going to automatically fetch an IP address from the pool that I have. I can also inject a key pair. So if I select default, it's going to allow me to see a root and a password through the user interface. And I can also select a firewall. So there's a default firewall, and I've created a second firewall here that's web only. So I'm just going to keep the defaults here. But as soon as I click create instance, the platform will start booting up these 3 instances that I asked for. And you can already see that it's starting up those compute instances. So here I have worker 1, worker 2, and actually already running. But once as soon as they start booting up, you can see that the platform is also collecting data. So here's a graph, and it hasn't any points yet, but it's already started to collect that data. And because I selected default, I can actually see the root password easily and start and log in directly. One of the cool features in QStack is that you have direct access to the console of the server, and that means that you can essentially log into the server through the web browser without having to open up any ports. So that's a very, very nice feature. This works equally as well for bare metal. So we've done a lot of work on supporting different out-of-band IPMI cards. And so we can do this exact same thing with bare metal servers as we do with VMs. Now, because it's an actual true cloud platform. We have taken a lot of time to build a couple of APIs in QStack. We have a compute API, and we have an object storage API. And the nice thing about our APIs is that they're actually not new. Our APIs are essentially Amazon's EC2 and Amazon's S3 APIs. So we've made our native APIs compatible with EC2 and S3, so you can actually use those tools directly. So anything that's built for EC2 and S3 essentially works out of the box with QStack. So I can add, because it's EC2 compatible, it means that everything is elastic as well. So for example, I can add a volume here to the server that I just started just by selecting a size, click add. And because the user interface that we have here is responsive, I don't need to reload anything. And right now, the volume is already created and it's connected. Obviously, we can support snapshotting. I can control the firewall for this and the other instance that I created in the group. Changing firewall settings is as easy as flipping switches. So here I have, for example, switch for SSH. If I want to close that, now I can't access the instance from SSH. Same if I had a Windows server and want to enable or disable remote desktop, that's a switch here. And because it's a cloud platform, I can obviously scale the instances on the fly. So if I wanted to add CPUs to this one, I could simply select, let's get 2 CPUs, click scale, and depending on if the instance has a new enough Linux kernel, if it's a Linux image, it won't actually have to restart. It can hot swap the CPU and the memory. But right now it's already restarted and now has more CPUs and more RAM. So you can see that here. Now it has 2 cores and 2 gigs of RAM. Now, other features within the compute part are, for example, built-in load balancers. So here I can very easily create a new load balancer, and this is highly useful. For example, if you are trying to create a highly available infrastructure and you want to load balance between 2 zones. So you could actually do that here without any additional hardware. This is completely software-based. So I would just select, create a new load balancer. I would select an available IP address, and I can acquire new IP addresses through the IP addresses panel. Let's say I want to load balance on port 80, and I'll just do round robin here. And to pull in the instances that I want to load balance on, I simply click instances, and I select which ones I want to have in this load balancer, like so. And I click create, and I'm done. So that's the ease of use of QStack there on the networking and the load balancing side. And obviously it comes with all the features that you would expect. So now I have an up and running load balancer. I could put a DNS name behind on front of this IP address, and off I go. The platform supports templating. So for example, I've created a new template here. If I wanted to start, let's say I want to start something that was created, or like I use a golden image from my own department, I could click here, community, and let's see, I have a couple of images here from the community. So Ubuntu, for example, Ubuntu desktop. Just click Ubuntu desktop. I don't need to do any of the more complicated things here. I just click create instance. And I did put a name in right now. So if you don't put a name in, it will simply use the generated ID like you would have in Amazon. And you can see it's coming up here. So now I've actually, once you've created a template from an instance, then you can easily spin up 100 instances of that. So you create your perfect template, and then you can deploy that through the API or through the web interface very, very easily. And as you can see here, now we actually are running on top of a UI-based Ubuntu template. So it's not only the console part not only works for Linux, but also works for graphical user interfaces. That was compute. Another unique feature of our platform is storage. So if I select here storage, I actually get access to my default bucket. And as I mentioned before, QStack is the first infrastructure or hybrid infrastructure management platform that's an all-in-one product. This means that it actually comes out of the box with object storage. So you'll probably be looking around, trying out these different object storage platforms like Ceph and maybe some of the commercial, more expensive commercial ones like NetApp or Scality. But GreenQloud's QStack comes out of the box with OpenStack Swift. And what we've done with Swift is improve its compatibility and automate the deployment of it. So we've made it a lot more compatible with the S3 API, which means that you can use all of those tools that are out there that are built for S3 to solve your big data problems, or just to use it in a sort of collaborative way. So, for example, here on my personal account, I'm simply using it for, managing my own documents. But obviously, the more valuable use here is using it through an API. So the good news is it comes just ready out of the box. The last thing I wanted to show you is the hybrid capabilities. So once I have a QStack environment set up, I can, as a user, I can add new zones, or as an admin, I can add new zones. If I wanted to add a new zone or a new region myself, I could click here, additional regions, and simply add my EC2 based authentication into this form here, like I've done for Ireland. And once I've done that, I can switch contexts here. So now I'm looking at my local zones, but when I switch to Ireland, I get the instances that are running in Amazon. You can see that the user interface didn't change that much. We lost some of the load balancing, but other than that, it's essentially the same. And creating a new instance is essentially the same, except now the templates are coming from AWS. So I want to create like Windows template here. I could do that. And the offerings, service sizes are now based on the Amazon sizes, but I have the same user interface for everything else. So user data is the same. I can do the same networking things, key pairs, firewalls, and that's because the user interface of QStack is completely based on top of the EC2 API, which is our native API. Right. So I think that will be the last point of my presentation, and I'll give the control back to Carl.
Well, thank you, Ike. So when you're done, could you just flash up to my first slide?
Yep.
Well, thank you, Ike, for that great demo.
Thank you.
I want to talk briefly about how ITBM and QStack from GreenQloud really works together. If we take a look at IT business management, it's really comprised of three elements: financial management, service management, and governance. And building an IT business management practice will change the way we traditionally deploy and manage our information and technologies as well as the way we interact with the rest of the organization. I want to give you a few examples and highlights from different areas of ITBM and how QStack can really make a difference. I could spend several hours going into depth on this, but I just want to highlight a couple of these. And this is coming from my perspective as an IT leader and former CIO. One thing is reporting. Well, reporting is so important to knowing what we're doing. It's one of the first steps towards true financial management. It's really going to help me create a common ground for utilization and get down to true cost conversations. Without reporting, I'm just trying to use some of the traditional IT speak, and that doesn't work anymore. Additionally, I need to leverage my current assets. When I've taken a look at a lot of new technologies out there, I find that a lot of the branded hardware and solution providers want me to replace their assets before the end of their current life cycles. You know, in addition to just leveraging my assets that I have, I need to figure out ways to extend their life cycles when possible. Service management. So it's really about creating the process on how information and technologies interact within the organization. Now that could, consider many different elements, but I'm thinking of the actual actions. I'm thinking of simplicity. I need to constantly work on making things less complex. I need to find solutions that really simplify what I own, not continue to add more technology on top of it. The same with operational management. Now, we can talk about simplicity, cost savings, and a bunch of other $2 words, but I still need to be able to deliver my goods and services to my line of business. If the concept of IT business management is not to create a bunch of business rules that break down technology, it's really to augment, to supplement, and to make what you're delivering stronger. So I need to create a balance when I evaluate my current situation, my current solutions, as well as when I look for new ones. What can I do to help improve my delivery, but yet create a stronger delivery? The same with governance as being the third in the trifecta here. Governance, I'm really thinking about the how I'm delivering my IT operations. We're not talking about compliance, we're talking about governance. We're talking about standards and risk management, process, and change management. Perhaps one of the most important parts of that is the standards I need to create. Standards includes the people, process, and the interaction with technology. What am I doing and how am I doing it, and how can I make that process repeatable constantly? And how can I create standards that make people want to use it and not go off on their own and create, problems that we see out there in the environment today, such as rogue IT or shadow IT. Another big headache, of course, is user management. I spent many years in banking, and with our compliance and regulatory demands, having to know and manage users down to their actual activities was very difficult. So what can I do? How can I create simplicity and yet make a more robust user management solution? I need to provision users with the appropriate level and maintain that. And without automation, that's an almost impossible task. So I'm always looking for solutions that can leverage and integrate with some of the industry standards and methods while lowering and keeping the complexity, to minimum. So how does QStack align to some of these needs? Well, first, its reporting solution really helps build a model that is truly transparent that I can work with the business and understand. It has features like the usage metering, the utilization, and with data that is output in a method that I can consume it through other billing systems. So if I have a process that I'm already looking at managing costs, it can interact with QStack. I'm able to leverage my own hardware, whether it's virtual, bare metal, or cloud resources. I don't have to go out there and buy a bunch of new stuff, mothball the old stuff, especially if it's before life cycle. I'm able to leverage what I have. Additionally, I can use my current VM stack. I don't need to go out there and recreate the wheel. I believe QStack really simplifies the technical management by aggregating everything into a single pane of glass. Boy, having to log into this system and log into that system and then trying to figure out what is going on with my network by logging into multiple systems becomes an impossible task. How many monitors do you want on your desk? How many monitors can you really look at one time? When I I also need technical management tool sets. And what QStack provides helps me create a standard way of doing things, consistent operations, quicker time to market, and of course a much higher accuracy rate when you're following standards. And I love the single sign-on support coupled with Active Directory and LDAP that really helps streamline user management. Now I can get back and I can know what my users are doing. I can add and remove permissions, and I can create a true environment in which users are managed. So these are just a few of the illustrations on how QStack aligns well with ITBM. I think leaders need to consider QStack because it will improve your management and give you insight into your costs and your simplifying your systems and solutions. So it's time for a few questions and answers that have been coming in. If you have any more, please feel free. But Aki, I'd like to ask you a couple of these from users. This one comes in and says, can I use QStack if I have a hybrid environment, such as on-prem and an off-prem like Azure?
Yeah, it's a good question. So QStack, QStack is a hybrid solution. So it's not an overlay on top of other people's or other existing on-prem solutions like you would have with, for example, RightScale. It's actually controlling the bare metal, but however, it supplies you with the hybrid capabilities. So you can control through the single pane of glass your internal stuff that QStack's running. It can control placing and migrating and manipulating VMs on your VMware cluster, and at the same time it can control your public cloud VMs and storage. And I didn't go directly into that in the demo, but we do in fact have object storage also built into the platform.
Good, thank you. There's another question that's somewhat related. Can I use QStack on any type of hardware? This includes servers, pizza box style servers, or even robust computers that I might actually be using as servers.
Yeah, the simple answer is yes. I mean, we've deployed QStack on, and our partners have deployed QStack on multiple server types. I would say that for the virtualization, you have the same sort of requirements as you would with KVM or VMware. You just need a semi-modern CPU that supports the right hypervisor flags. And that basically means any hardware from the last 6 years or so. So QStack is not particular on any hardware set. You can use any type of storage with it. We actually do prefer that you have NFS endpoint or iSCSI endpoint. QStack can provide the storage layer as well, but we love to work on top of existing things like NetApp. So yeah, you can use pretty much anything for it. For the bare metal, you need to be able to have a management and out-of-band network. So because we're talking directly to the IPMI.
Oh, sure. Well, excellent. So I have everything set up, and I receive a new request. So the question becomes, how long should it take to create a new server instance, allocate resources, and give it to the requester?
That's a really good question, because we're changing the way that you do that, because you don't need to do that anymore for the user. The user will do that themselves. What you will do and you know, spend your time on doing is simply setting the limitations. So setting the quota, for example, and allowing them to do these things themselves. And that takes a whole bunch of time and puts that back in your budget to do, you know, more business value things. So, but technically, to answer your question, it takes a few seconds. I mean, we launched, like I was saying before, we launched a 100-node Hadoop cluster in about 3 minutes. And so for VMs, it's a few seconds. Booting up a bare metal server on a completely new template takes around 4 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes. But the thing is that it takes 3 to 4 minutes for 1 or 100 servers, so it doesn't matter. So it scales very well.
Excellent. And I want to add, this adds to what I look for is simplicity. It also adds to standards because people are going to be doing it the same exact way. And ideally, it should cut down on the concept of shadow or rogue IT. People need to go elsewhere because they can't get the services that IT provides. This will give IT the ability to provide those services. So this really hits it on multiple fronts. And there's one question that's coming in that's talking about licensing models. So could you briefly describe the licensing model?
Sure. So QStack is, we found that when we started with QStack, we went the traditional upfront payment license for a year, 2 years. But we found that people really want to have the same sort of OPEX model as they have in the public cloud. So we've simplified the QStack model into simply being a single price per host that you want to run as a VM or a management server, and it's a monthly fixed cost. And on the bare metal side, if you're running bare metal clusters, there's a price per core. So you can have, and that's actually to the benefit of the user because you may want to have bare metal servers that have very few cores for some head nodes or such. And then you don't have to pay the full price for those. It becomes a lot cheaper. And that's especially good for service providers when they want to have offer dedicated hosts or bare metal hosts.
Excellent. I know traditionally licensing has been so frustrating, especially when you're in an expansion mode or a contraction mode and you pay long-term licensing on assets that you no longer have. So that's great to see a really flexible model. Thank you. And let me see if we have any more questions coming in. I'm not seeing any other questions. So I'd like to hand it back to our moderator.
Right. I see one question here, though. I would like to answer that, actually. So there's a question on the difference between paying for QStack versus deploying CloudStack. So that's an interesting question. I didn't actually go into the technical details of that, but QStack is the first platform to actually use the best of all worlds in the open source. So actually, we do use components from CloudStack, but at the same time, we use a few components from OpenStack as well. And this is what I was talking about in the beginning of being in a future-proof platform. So we can actually pull components from those projects if we want to. So for example, if you wanted to have, let's say you wanted to have something similar to CloudFormations in Amazon, we could pull in OpenStack Heat to use that. But that being said, the components from CloudStack and OpenStack that we are part of our system, and we actually are one of the largest contributors, original contributors to CloudStack. And now we've done some stuff on the OpenStack Swift side. Those are just perhaps 1/10 of the components that make up QStack. So we have so many other systems. So the issue that you would have with deploying just simple CloudStack, for example, is that bare metal doesn't work, utility metering doesn't work. OpenStack, it's even worse there. But I mean, these are great frameworks, and we use them as frameworks. So we have a complete solution that's deployable now, works now, and you can upgrade live without having to worry about breaking everything. And we've run QStack as a public cloud for 4 years, so we really know how to harden this and what issues you would have on a large scale.
Excellent. Thank you. Do you have any closing remarks or statements?
I'd like just to invite those that are attending to follow up, and I'm going to give that over to you guys to give them the details on that. But I'd just like to say thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation and our talk.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to our moderator.
Thank you, everyone, for joining today, and thank you to all of our presenters. We will be emailing you a replay of today's presentation. We also invite you to visit us at nuvalo.com/events to see our schedule of upcoming events, webinars, and in-person events. And you can also follow us on social media, Twitter, and Facebook and LinkedIn. Contact us with any additional questions or comments, or if you need assistance with any upcoming cloud initiatives at client.services@nuvalo.com. Thank you, everyone, and this concludes our call.